a little hell.
And then you have your social media. So social media handles, once again, should be consistent. The most important thing that you always have to remember about running for office is you want to make it as easy as possible for people to find you, right? You want people to be able to type in your name or type in, Jenny for clerk or Kari for judgeship, and you are going to be the one who comes up. So all your social media handles should be the same, right? I ran for council, so mine was always Amoy for council. My Facebook was at Amoy for council. My Instagram was at Amoy for council. My Twitter was at Amoy for council. Every single thing was consistent across the board because I wanted, one, it's easier that way, and especially when you make up business cards and things like that, just less things to put on the business card, less things to put on a palm card. But once again, it makes it easier for people to find you. If you do a TikTok, same. And that also creates cohesiveness, and that makes it easier for folks to find you across the board. Make sure that you're tagging correctly. One of the things that I've learned to do better, and this is something, once again, I don't come from Twitter or any of this background, but one of the things I had to learn to do was, okay, if I'm trying to, if I'm putting up something, let's say we've seen what's going on with Bands Off Our Bodies, with Planned Parenthood. Anything that I posted yesterday, I made sure to tag Planned Parenthood, right? Because I wanted to tag the entities that it's important to, that have a voice in this issue. If you're endorsed by different organizations or elected officials or whoever you might be endorsed with, tag those endorsements, right? Because those endorsements can amplify what you've just posted. So make sure that you're tagging things accordingly, tagging your endorsements, tagging organizations, tagging different community organizations and different community groups that this is an important issue for them. Avoid pushing posts from one platform to another. So sometimes people don't understand what that means, but this is actually really important. What that means is that you shouldn't necessarily share, like when Instagram says, do you want to share this on your Facebook? And do you want to share this on your TikTok? You actually should do individual messages for each one. Even if you copy and paste, you shouldn't necessarily share across platforms because it actually doesn't sometimes translate very well, even though they say they do. We know Instagram and Facebook own each other, so they sometimes do a better job. But TikTok is not TikTok. I like TikTok, but not TikTok. But Twitter is a different platform than Facebook and Instagram. Twitter is not so when you share from Instagram to Twitter, it actually doesn't share very well. It doesn't look good. So don't share across platforms, just post individually on each platform. Even if you just got to copy and paste post, just do it. It's worth it rather than having some sort of like shared situation where it doesn't look that great. And engage. One thing about posts is that you got to engage. You got to engage when people write to you. You should be writing back to people. You should also be looking at other people's posts and writing on their posts. That's how it increases your algorithms, and also that's how people start to see your posts more. When you write on other people's posts, they start to see your posts even more. So make sure you engage. Even if it's, you wake up in the morning and you spend a half an hour just sort of going through your Facebook, going through your Instagram, going through your Twitter, just engage, and be strategic, right? We only have so much time, so engage with the individuals, the different organizations, the folks that you really are trying to connect with. Instagram. So Instagram, you want to keep things simple. Instagram is images, right? Like Instagram is not about telling a story. Instagram is using images. So when you're using images and you're using graphics, you got to make sure those graphics are straight to the point. They say what they need to say. Utilize your branding, high resolution, make sure it's not grainy and things of that nature, and be straight and direct to point and communicate your message. So, this picture on the with everybody sitting down, it's a great picture to post, but it's not saying anything. it has to be pretty much, what's the call to action? Join us for a day of action on this day, sign up here. Simple, straight to the point. And know that you could use the same graphic over and over again, just change the day. I would always use the same Bitly volunteer sign up link, because it's just easier that way to use the same link. And you just change the graphic around a little bit, but it's straight to the point. It's simple. And one, they know it's me. They know I'm the candidate. They know that I'm the person that they're looking to support. This was the organization that endorsed me, so it was a day of action with that organization. If you're doing a day of action with organizations or with volunteers, you can add them to it. Once again, it's just about being clear, concise, and straight to the point. And simple. Don't overthink things. Be as simple as possible and have fun. Just do something fun. When you're doing your headshots, make sure you do all different types of headshots, as Sophie said. Headshots are really, be creative with your headshots. And the simple thing about folding your arms, when you fold your arms in headshots, make sure you fold them like this, right? So that they, I always find it funny. People fold their arms like this and then your hands disappear in the thing. I just find it a little weird sometimes. Yes. This is like a little trick. That's it. Fold your arms like this, so it's over. That way your hand doesn't disappear. Fun little, just fun little thing. So Instagram, once again, there's a lot you could do with Instagram. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not like an Instagram expert, but whatever you're looking to do, whatever you're putting on, and whatever you're communicating, just make sure that it's really clear. The candidate's in the photo, the graphics are bold, it's high resolution, everybody can read it, it's simple, and people know what the call to action is. You could also use Instagram for feed, reels, and IGTV stories, and live. I'm not gonna lie, I'm more of a Facebook person, and that's because that was my demographic. You have to know your demographic. When you're running for office, you should know where your audience social media is, right? If you're running for office and you know that your constituents are mostly on Instagram, then you should probably be using the feeds and the reels and the IGTV, because that's where you're going to meet your audience. And if you know your audience is on Facebook, then that's where you should be utilizing. You should be using Facebook Live. You should be utilizing those things. Know where your audience is. Once again, remember, you only have so much time. So nobody's expecting you to be an expert in everything. But what you should do is you should know where your voters are and how to reach them. Be sure to capture the content accordingly. Take advantage of expanded reach. Time allowance. One of the things I did learn is how to, taking videos and putting them up on Instagram. That's a cute trick to learn. Instagram stories, all that stuff. So Twitter is about being straight to the point, succinct, have fun, stay on message, keep it short. You know that there's only a certain amount of characters that you can use. So Twitter teaches you to be really concise, and just be mindful that anything you put on Twitter, it will come back to you. Remember that in the social media world, nothing disappears, okay? And no matter if you delete it, there's always some way to track everything back. So be very strategic about what you're posting, why you're posting it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you're running for office, your time is precious. You want to get a message across, but you also want to communicate what's important to you, what your values are. And that's what you're using social media to do. You're using social media to communicate who you are, what your message is, what your values are, what you stand for, what's important to you, and share that with and connect with other folks who also share those values. So if you're using Twitter, know what you want to use Twitter for. You're using Twitter to help you. I know a lot of candidates nowadays are actually using Twitter to help them fundraise. Twitter is a great place to fundraise from. Twitter and Facebook, I say, are like really great fundraising platforms. Either way, just be concise. Know you only have a certain amount of characters. Even when you're tagging, once again, when you're tagging on Twitter, that counts towards your characters, right? So when you're writing a message and when you're writing something, just know, like, okay, I'm going to tag these excuse me, I have my allergies, these 3 unions. Do I have enough characters to tag these 3 or 4 unions and say this and say that? Concise, straight to the point, and communicate. And remember, people are, people are watching it. People look at it. People keep track. People screenshot. So if you don't want to say it out loud, then don't say it. Okay, don't say it on social media. Never push posts from one platform to another. Once again, remember, don't put something on Twitter and then it says, do you want to share on Facebook? No. Facebook and Twitter, you can't share. It doesn't work. Don't do it. Just post it yourself on Facebook, post it yourself on Instagram, post it yourself on Twitter. Facebook. Facebook is a great place. There's so many people on Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook. Policy, events, volunteering, ads. Facebook, you could really use Facebook for a lot. Now, one of the things, once again, I said earlier is that I am not a technology expert. So what did I do? I found somebody who is a technology expert on Facebook and Facebook ads and all these stuff. I ended up hiring a great woman-owned strategist social media firm that does social media and Facebook ads and Google ads and knows how to do all this stuff. And I brought them in to run our Facebook ads. But before you even do that, the things that you can do yourself is you could post on your Facebook. So when you're going to events, when you're doing things, you should always be taking pictures and you should always be posting. The thing that I want to say that you got to try to get into the habit of is posting as quickly as possible, right? Now we know when you're at an event, you're in the moment, you're talking to people, you're connecting with folks, everything is happening really quickly all at once. Taking picture, hope maybe somebody's with you, maybe not. Let's say you didn't have a chance to take a picture, but you saw other people who did take a picture. One of the things that I would always do if I'm at an event and I see somebody who's taking pictures, I go up to them and say, hi, can I get your information? I'd love to get the pictures that you took. I'd love for you to send them to me, right? Because you might have been by yourself. And so since you're by yourself, you might not be able to take a lot of pictures. Don't, go with them, say, hey, can I get some of those pictures? Once you get a chance, when you find a moment, post that event, post that picture. Or what I would do sometimes is I'd go someplace and I'd Facebook Live, like if I'm at a community event, I'd go to that community event and say, hey, listen, everyone, I'm at this amazing community event. They're giving away food. They're giving away, books. They're giving away diapers. Everybody should come, spread the word, come to this event. Use Facebook to communicate as much as possible to your voters. And share it, and also tag. When you're posting things, tag friends, tag family, tag people, tag organizations, and share it across in different groups. So best times to post. So you and your digital director will want to check your insights, which are the analytics that actually show and determine the most strategic times your account is being looked at. Once again, if this is not something that you're an expert in, then you get your digital director, you find a social media strategist, or you find a really great intern or student or volunteer who's willing to do this. You only have so much time. Nobody expects you to be able to do everything. It's important because nobody knows what you're doing unless you tell them. That is absolutely right. This is something that I tell candidates all the time. You have to post. Post. And also try to do some pre-planning with your posting. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that my team and I did was we sat down and we looked at the calendar for every single month, right? We're like, okay, what's happening in the month of March? Okay, it's Women's History Month, So we tried to plan out all our posts ahead of time. Oh, we know Mother's Day is coming. We know St. Patrick's Day is coming. We know Ramadan is coming. We know Easter is coming. There's things that are on the calendar that are automatically coming. And what we did is we created graphics ahead of time for all these different events, and then you could actually plan these posts out. So you could use platforms like that actually can automatically, what do they call it again? Schedule your post for you and put those posts and they already scheduled and ready to go. So things like Mother's Day, Mother's Day is always coming. So already have a graphic ready to go and scheduled and a post scheduled to go. Try to do as much pre-planning as possible to take all these little things off your plate. because as you get closer to election day, you're not going to really, it's going to be, go, 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 knocking doors, all this other stuff. So you want to be able to still show your social media presence and still show that you're involved and active. And that's how people know what you're doing, right? One thing that people would say to me is they'd say, "Oh my God, Amor, you're like everywhere all the time." Well, another trick of the trade is that I would actually save pictures for later on down the line. So once again, going back to scheduling your post, I'd have tons of pictures that I hadn't used for many different things, and I just schedule those pictures to be posted. So even though like this, like people think, oh, you're all over the place, it's like, no, I just posted this picture of this stuff, that I planned, like it's the perception, because you can't be everywhere, but you got to at least be perceived to be everywhere, right? And this is how you kind of post left bar for insights. This is how you check your insights for each entity. So you go to Facebook, you go to page, left sidebar, you check for insights. These are how you check all the insights and your analytics. Once again, I'm not good at that stuff, so I never really did it. I'm good at posting a lot, so that's what I did. So remember, just do what you're good at, what you're comfortable with. Photography is important. Yes, it is. Taking good pictures is really important. And I'm not like, you have to, one of the things that my team did is we actually invested in buying a good high resolution camera. But I mean, listen, our phones nowadays, they take great pictures. You can take great pictures on your phone. You can take great pictures with a camera, but make sure you invest in some good headshots, because those headshot pictures are what's going to be all around town when you get endorsements, when people are putting your picture in the paper. Try your best to take very good high resolution headshots. Take some action shots. You're going to have to take those community shots as well. I know that one of the things that I have candidates do is when they have, a bunch of events they're going to, we actually hire a photographer to join us with us and go with us to all the different events. So we have somebody who's the designated photographer who's going to take high resolution photos, right? Like, and listen, you can hire somebody, and when I say hire, it's like, we pay a volunteer a stipend, or a student a stipend to take some really great pictures. I think it's important to have this because high resolution pictures, it just looks sharp. One thing that we know that as women, people judge us. People judge women differently than they judge men. People judge us very, very differently. The way we dress, our makeup, everything is judged differently. If I told you how many times people complained about me wearing shorts, I was like, what? Is this 1962? Am I living? I can't wear shorts. Like, it's 98 degrees outside. What's going on here? But you have to understand, you're just going to get judged differently. So just try your best to be on your game. You're not going to be on your game all the time, but it's the perception. Invest in professional photography. Know what you're wearing, right? Like, I know for me, I got used to wearing a uniform because I just didn't want to worry about what I was wearing, and my uniform would be a blazer, my campaign t-shirt, and some jeans and some comfortable shoes. People get used to that uniform, they get used to seeing you, and they recognize you very easily. Make sure you have your branding, your colors, a videographer. If you could have a videographer there as well, that's great to capture some great B-roll. If you're looking at doing any videos and things of that nature, you will use these photos everywhere: website, social media, event invitations, endorsement announcement, campaign press. You will use this. I still use all my photos. Everything. My photos are. I'm gonna be one of those people using campaign photos from like 20 years ago. They're gonna be like, you don't look like that anymore. I'm like, and that happens a lot. I see a lot of elected officials use campaign photos from like 30 years ago. I'm like, what are you doing? But it happens. Photography is important. If you cannot hire a professional photographer yet, use a phone, right? I have a friend who takes amazing photos on her phone. She's really good. She's really good. And so we asked her to take some photos of a candidate, and she took some amazing portrait photos, really good photos. It's totally okay. Do not shoot under direct sunlight. Sunlight is like a great day to shoot is a cloudy gray day. I never understood that till I ran for office. When it's cloudy and gray, it's like, yes, let's get outside and capture some photos. It's great photo weather. Do not shoot in partially cloudy day or mid-morning. Not mid-morning, not late afternoon, more like, more like sometime like around 3 is usually pretty good. But do not be backlit too much. Once again, like, I'm not an expert in these things. I bring in experts to do this. I bring in folks who are really, really connected and interested in this stuff. I have a really good friend of mine who's a great photographer, and she's just amazing. So once again, if you have somebody who's willing to help you do this, help. The most important thing when running for office, I can't stress this enough, is to don't be afraid to ask for help. You got to ask for help. You cannot do this on your own. You must ask for help. Online accessibility is really, really important. Language accessibility, you got to think about translation. You have to think about disability access, and these are things that sometimes one might not think about as much because it's just not something that is a part of the conversation. But I have a candidate that I'm working with right now that is dyslexic, and she was just like, you have to make sure that there's accessibility on the website, because I won't be, she said, I won't be able to read my website if it's not accessible, like, these are things we have to think about. So when you're running a campaign, you have to remember to think about multiple aspects of your constituency. What languages are prevalent in your community, so that you can make sure that you can have that translation on your website. Also on your flyers. And anything that you're putting out on social media. You're putting out flyers, you're putting out events that you want to invite people to. You want to make sure that everybody feels invited. So you want to make sure that those flyers are translated into languages that can reach as many people as possible. And also, when you're thinking about disability access, does it have a screen reader? One of the things that I learned when putting together a website is that when the website pictures are up, the website designers can actually will type in the description of each photo, so that when the screen reader is being read, they're going to also be able to read the descriptions of the photos. So that's like, those are the things that we want to think about when we think about accessibility. All videos should be closed captioned, right? They should be closed captioned. People should be able to read them, and also there should be the option of translating in different languages. Closed captioning, language translation, alt text. Every time you post visual content, a lot of times what I'm seeing now is that also on social media, when you're posting on social media, you can actually post a description of the pictures that you've posted, right? If you have time to do that, do that. I think it's always really helpful, and it actually increases your analytics on the website. So it's a little extra time, but it's worth it if you have time to do it. And it's also, once again, it makes it more accessible to folks that your constituents that you're trying to connect with, to add those picture descriptions in. And once you start doing these things, believe it or not, you just get better at them. Remember that although you might not be an expert in something, at least learn how to do it a little bit, and then you just get better at it. And then when you're doing the picture descriptions, you'll just know how to do it really quickly. I think that is it for the presentation. I just want to say, first and foremost, all this, it's a lot of information, but always feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my information in the chat, and Sophie and Eleanor's Legacy know how to connect with me. But like I said before, when you're running for office or you're running a campaign, build a team. You cannot do everything yourself. It is impossible. There is so much to be done. So please remember to build a team. Please remember to ask for help. And Eleanor's Legacy has amazing contacts and resources to be able to connect and use those contacts and resources, and connections such as myself who have gone through this process, and I'm more than happy to share whatever contacts and resources that I have. Thank you so much. Are we taking questions, Sophie?
After Brian, but thank you. We will. Thank you so much, Amoy. Can you please unshare?
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Amoy. Amoy is truly the expert on all these things. And you don't have to be as naturally gorgeous as Amoy is to have amazing campaign photography, but it doesn't hurt.
Just good lighting. Good lighting does the trick, man.
So much. Okay, so for our next speaker for today, we're going a little bit out of the box. And you all know that I would never hand a microphone to a man because I don't believe that they have anything interesting to say. However, this is the exception. And I asked my dear friend, Brian Derrick, to speak with you today because he's done something incredibly interesting, which is that he has created for himself a very strong social media presence around politics on Instagram, which is something that is unique and you don't see every day. Obviously, like everyone's tweeting about politics at all times, but what he's done is truly unique. And I wanted to bring him here to talk all about his experiences on social media, creative and different uses of social media, alternative social media platforms, and answer all of your burning questions. So Brian, please take it away.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I appreciate it. If it helps, I have only ever worked to elect women and non-binary candidates. I've consulted now and again for a couple men, but it's very few and far between. So, as Sophie said, my name is Brian. I'm a former campaign staffer, and now I work on a startup that I founded called Oath. And what we do is direct Democratic donors to races where their dollars can have the most impact. In the last 24 hours, we raised over $125,000 for 6 state legislative candidates in competitive races that will have a potentially major impact on future repro rights legislation. I kind of want to talk about what content you're putting out there. As Sophie mentioned, my platform of choice is Instagram, which is definitely different than where most politicos spend their time. But so that's sort of what I root a lot of this in, but I think much of it can translate to other platforms. I definitely want to leave time for questions and answer any of those that you all have. So first and foremost on content, I boiled it down to 3 simple rules for you. The first is to be authentic. I know that we all hear that a lot, but what I mean by that is you need to find your own voice so that people know what to expect when they see your name or your profile pop up on their newsfeed on any platform. For me, my brand is sort of a optimistic but sometimes snarky commentary on political news that people can have an impact on. So I'm not talking about like Donald Trump or his family, lots of things that go viral like that, but I'm keeping it really focused on electoral politics, on races that people can donate and volunteer to. And so that's what people can expect when they come to my profile. That's important because when someone does show up on your profile by any means, whether they were Googling you or just clicked through from another interesting post, they're only going to click the follow button if they have some kind of sense very quickly of what it is you're going to be putting into their newsfeed. That whether they click the follow button or not is about them curating something for themselves and less about you. So making really clear what kind of content you're putting out there, I think is really important. The second rule of content for me is to add value. So be original, essentially. What is someone who is following you how is their life going to be better for doing that? It can be because you are educating people about politics, about particular issues or the office that you're running for, either in a behind the scenes way of, oh, this is how this office actually works. This is how it impacts your life. Or in a more general way that you have an original point of view on political issues that are in the headlines. Or it can be an entertainment value, right? You can share original recipes and food that you're cooking and connect with people that way. That can be part of your social media footprint. but having something where you are actually adding value and not just a play-by-play of your life every day. People shouldn't follow you just because you're running for an office, or I will rephrase, they're not going to follow you just because you're running for a particular office in most cases. That's not closely related enough to their life and what they want to see on social media. So having some way that you are adding value to the conversation or to their newsfeed. If you do art, you could be sharing original pieces of art every now and again as like part of that. That's going to make somebody want to see your posts and like them and then see them more often and engage with them. And then my last rule is to be responsive. Amoy talked about this. It's really important that you are responding to comments, and on Instagram in particular, but also Twitter, Facebook, direct messages. I sort of carved out a niche as a Politico person that can answer people's questions. And so I make a point to go through my DMs and answer the questions that people have, even if that involves a little bit of legwork on my end to find the answer, because then they'll keep coming back with more questions. And if a lot of people are asking that question, then I can do a post on it because I can see that trend happening, that a lot of people are wondering, if this Supreme Court decision comes out in this way, what does that mean for LGBT rights? What have you? And so by seeing that trend and seeing, oh, this is a commonality that a lot of people are wondering about, I can predict that, post the content, and everyone who was just thinking that same question is then going to share the answer or engage with that post at a minimum. Those are sort of my basic rules. Amoy talked about like, know what you're good at. I think I love that. That is a perfect place to start. And I think for content and determining what you're putting out there, it's about like, know who you are. A lot of politicians or political candidates think that the way to reach people online is to participate in viral trends. I think that you've all probably seen like TikToks of like sitting senators doing random TikTok trends and things like that. They're usually pretty cringy because that person is not being authentic. They don't have a clear voice. They're not adding value. I'm like, why aren't you busy doing something? We're in a state of crisis, and they're certainly not connecting with me in a real way. So I think that knowing who you are will enable you to do all of these things and connect people in a way that is relatable. The second thing that I want to talk about is growing your following. I think that there are two goals that most of you probably have on social media in addition to just being present. One is to grow your following, and the second is to fundraise. So first we'll talk about following, and then the more followers you have, the easier it is to fundraise. So as I sort of alluded to, there are all these trends that you can see across different platforms. TikTok is the most obvious one, where people are literally doing copycat videos of each other, but it also happens on other platforms. I don't concern myself too much with the trends. I don't engage at all on TikTok with those trends and that kind of thing. I think that it's more important to have a clear and consistent message than it is to try to jump on random bandwagon trends. But that being said, you can game the algorithm a little bit. Amoy also talked about this in terms of engaging with people. You're going to appear more in their algorithm if you are responding to their DMs, if you are commenting on their posts, liking posts of the same people that you both follow, like Joe Biden, for example. You will game the system, so to speak, and appear more often. Instagram in particular has a huge priority for videos. The more video content you can do on Instagram, the more accounts you will interact with. I think I have about 40, somewhere around there, 42,000 followers on Instagram, but I reach about 200,000 accounts a week. A lot of that is because the algorithm will prioritize videos, and as your videos do better and better, they will reach more and more people. So thinking about, okay, what am I going to make videos about? It's not just about filming you throughout your day, or a speech. It's about keeping it short and playing to whatever your voice is, like we talked about before. So understanding what that is and how to package it in that way. The other way is to keep your engagement really high. Engagement is much more important than the number of followers you have. I know other political influencer type people online that have maybe tenfold or more followers than I do, that I can raise more money with a single Instagram story than they can do with a hard post because their engagement is so low. And the way that I'm able to do that is that I keep it very neighborly. I feel very accessible to people. And so they don't have, it doesn't feel like a big leap to shoot me a DM or a comment, because I respond and because I engage with them. So keeping your engagement levels high, that's the number of people that like, comment, DM, and share your posts, is really a much more valuable thing than having all of the followers in the world, but they don't really know who you are, and you drop so low in their algorithm that they don't really see your posts anymore either. Last topic that I want to get into before turning it over to questions is fundraising. So I am a fundraiser by trade. It is what I have done for the last decade for nonprofit organizations, for political candidates at every level of office. As a finance director or a campaign manager, whatever, you're really focused on building a digital program, AKA like email and that kind of piece of it, as well as high dollar donors through events, direct solicitation, call time, etc. Social media doesn't tend to be a high priority for fundraising, but if you do it well, you can raise a lot of money online. Like I said before, we've raised like $125,000 in the last day. And there are a few tricks to being able to do that. The first is timing. So you can't, and I see this happen a lot, you can't just put out constant asks for $5, chip in $5, chip in $5, as like a steady drumbeat all the time and expect people to really respond to that. It needs to be sort of an ebb and flow, that you have a specific time. It can be before a campaign filing, or end of the month. It could be a fake deadline. It could be a real deadline. It could be something that's in the headlines, like this case was today or yesterday. But having an ebb and flow is really important, so that people don't just come to your page expecting you to see you with your hand out all the time. The second is to have a specific ask and a reason for giving. So obviously you're running, obviously all candidates need money, but having a very clear value statement that translates on social media, that can be summed up in one sentence, and that can change over time, because you'll get everybody who responds to one the first time, and you'll want a different kind of pitch the second time, for that reason. So for this example, we were framing these 6 state legislative races, which they are, as potential swing votes in purple states that could be the difference between blocking an abortion ban or not having the votes to do that, or codifying Roe v. Wade in law or not having the votes to do that. A very clear reason that people would want these candidates to succeed, and a reason to donate. A thing that probably most of the folks on this meeting can relate to is that your race is currently, or in the future might be, much less expensive than the races that people are used to hearing about and getting asked to give money to, like US Senate, congressional, and those kinds of races. Emphasizing that your budget is significantly lower and someone's impact can be much greater is a great tool to solicit contributions online. It's a very easily understood story and reason, and compelling reason for someone to give. And then the final piece is about engaging with the people who respond to you by donating. So there are a few ways that you can do this. as people are sharing your posts on Instagram, as an example, you can reshare their Instagram stories to your Instagram story. So highlighting the fact that they are out there sharing this information, this content on your behalf, encourages other people to do the same thing. I mean, our post was shared more than 5,000 times, and that was somewhat predictable because we saw a couple people share it. We recognized those people. We thanked those people. I DM'd thank you to almost every person that I could find that had shared it into their Instagram story. And then for the really great ones, I reposted it into my Instagram story, or like some celebrities started to share it, that kind of thing. Reposted that into my Instagram story to be like, this is a community thing. Like, now we're all doing this, and there's a social pressure to participate in a good way. People want to be part of something. If I give $5 to a random race, it's hard to know whether that's ever going to make a difference. But if a couple thousand of us join together and give $5 each, there's a very clear change that we can make. So those are a few just of my top line tips on fundraising. A few random things on my not to do list. The first is to share press releases on social media. Elected officials do this all the time. For me, it is an absolute no, where people just take a PDF or a JPEG of a long press release and just share it as an image online. Nobody's reading that. Even if people like it, they're not reading it. Nobody spends that much time on a post. It's much more impactful to take 1 or 2 sentences from that post to format it for the platform that you're sharing it to, and share the highlight, share the important part, share your quote only, that kind of thing. Also use carousels. A carousel, if you're not familiar, on Instagram is where you can do multiple slides, where you post once, but somebody can swipe through and see multiple screens. That's a way to share a lot more information in a way that is still really readable for people who are scrolling through a lot of photos. If you look at my Instagram page, you'll see there's a pretty close correlation between the number of words in a post and the engagement that post gets. The more words you have, the fewer likes, shares, comments it's going to have. There are exceptions to that when you're adding a tremendous amount of value to someone. I've done breakdowns of massive pieces of legislation, like the $1.9 trillion package last year, like the Build Back Better Act, that take more than 20 words to break down. But people share those en masse because they're really complex things that are hard to understand, that are very clearly laid out for them. And we're taking the work off of them, and all they have to do is look at it and understand. The only place that I will slightly break with Amoy, and I'm happy for us to have a lively discussion about it, is around the calendar of holidays and things. I personally don't get a lot of joy out of seeing like every elected that I follow post some variation of a graphic on any given holiday, whether I celebrate it or not. I still think that it's important to recognize that those are happening, especially on like Twitter, where things are more transient and like you'll never see a tweet after it's gone kind of thing. But especially on Instagram, if a lot of your page is just becomes like the calendar, it's like, okay, I'll use my calendar. That you can also do like a photo with people. If it's your holiday, post a photo of you observing that holiday with your family. If it's somebody else's holiday, go into the community, participate in the observance of that holiday in some way, and share a good photo. Amoy had amazing advice on the photos that are good and not good, that kind of thing. But that's my own personal preference. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, I'm over time already, is Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, Canva is your absolute best friend. It is Photoshop for anybody. They have amazing templates. It's basically as simple as like clicking a couple colors, or like changing the colors of something and then typing in the text that you want to be there. You can use it to post quotes, like after the Roe document leaked, like that would be a good time, instead of like doing a press release or something like that. Like get a very simple, on my Instagram, which you can see, it's at Brian Derrick _. I use the same color background and the same 3 fonts all the time. And so it's very recognizable. People see that and they know that it's my post. You can do the same thing using Canva. Very simple. And I will stop there, excited for questions.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was incredible. I hope you all see why we made the exception. I think that we should do questions for Brian and Amoy. Does that sound good? So if you have questions for either Brian or Amoy, please raise your hand or unmute yourself.
So I like Brian's advice, by the way. I agree with you 100%, Brian. It's always better to be in the community actually doing it and observing it, or post like, oh, this is what I did last St. Patrick's Day, things of that nature. During the pandemic, of course, there was no St. Patrick's Day parade, right? But like, I just posted a picture of what I did last St. Patrick's Day parade, right? So you're right. It's always better to show that you've interacted in the community. And it's just better. People can engage with it better. So no, I completely agree with you. No argument there.
All right, we're on the same page. I love it.
Amazing. Thank you. Avery just posted Brian and Amoy's social media links in the chat. I highly encourage you to follow them. Lisa, question.
Yes, I just want to thank Amoy and Brian for your presentation. It was very informative and helpful for me. And as I stated, I'm considering running for the council seat in my district, which is the North District. I'm from Erie County, but this question is for Amoy. When you stated that you ran for the council seat, how did you do? And what year was that? And then do you plan on running for, I guess, the council seat again, or a different office?
Yeah, so I ran for City Council, New York City Council, 49th District, which is North Shore of Staten Island. I ran for it last year, which is 2021. I came in second out of 9 people in a very, very crowded race. Thank you. I appreciate it. And if I'm running again, I'm considering it. It's not 100% off the table. It's just one of those things that, running for office is it's a lot. It's a lot. And whether it be like, fundraising or campaigning, once you do it the first time, you kind of get a sense of like, okay, I think I got it, but it still is something that can take an emotional toll on you, which is why I say over and over again to please remember that if you decide to go through this process, make sure you build a team around you, because it can be very exhausting if you're just doing everything yourself. It's impossible to do everything yourself. And so one thing I'm really grateful for is that since I've gone through the process, I have such an amazing support system and such an amazing team that's ready to hop on the bandwagon if we're going to do this again. And I got Brian to help me with fundraising, right?
You know it. I got you.
I'm telling you, fundraising is really annoying. It's horrible. One thing I will say, if you're looking to run for office, the first thing that you should do is make a list of who is willing to give you money. Because fundraising is very difficult. And, as if you're not a person who has contacts and connections and networks, like I said, I come from an immigrant background. Like my Jamaican family was like, man, I understand why you need $25 for, why you need 25, what you gotta do with $25? Like I need it to run a campaign. Can you please give me $25? Like, you won't believe the discussions you'll have. But I'm grateful that I did have a great support system. I'm here with my grandmother. She donated. She was really, and she hates politics, but she donated anyway. My whole family hates politics, but they all donated, you know. But just remember, build a support system, because if running the first time was difficult. And of course, I'm not going to lie, losing is difficult, although we ran an amazing campaign and I had such an amazing support system. So many different people supported me. We had great endorsements. It's still difficult. It's still difficult. So still working through it.
Thank you for sharing.
Jill? We lost you. You're on mute again.
Hear me? Okay, sorry about that. Can both of you discuss the boosting and placing ads, when you do it, the value of it, any strategy that you can impart?
I can take a swing.
Big sigh.
I can take a swing at it. For my Instagram, my personal Instagram, the political stuff that I've been talking about, I've never spent a dime. It's 100% organic growth. And that's one way to keep your engagement really high, which I talked about. Oh, great. Okay. And then we're going to have someone talking about ads. Thank God. I've done it for campaigns that I've worked on. I think that my general principle was make sure something does well first organically, and then as you see it succeeding, put more money behind it to give it that extra oomph. But that's just a general rule.
Yeah, ad buying is not my area of expertise. So I rely on the experts for that, and to decide what should be put out there. I find that, similar to what Brian said, people really engage well with things community based, right? Things that they see their fellow constituents at, their fellow neighbors at, things of that nature. You can do a lot of organic engagement before you do ad buying. You could really, and that's what you should do. You should do a lot of organic engagement, a lot of community building. Like if you plan to run for office, you should already be in the community. You should already be doing the work in the community, and you should already have sort of a built community presence that should be able to organically translate over into your running for office.
All right, so I have a follow-up if you don't mind. So I do have a pretty big presence on my personal page, but now how do I get that to come over to my the page I started for my campaign?
On which platform are we talking about? On Facebook?
You can look at my age. It's Facebook. I'm a Facebook person. My community is Facebook.
I think that having your personal page share content from your campaign page. So post something onto your campaign page that you think is really great, share that onto your personal page so that when people see it and they want to engage with it, the original post that they're engaging with is taking them to your campaign page. Occasionally throw in hey, follow my campaign here, but it shouldn't be constant or you'll lose interest in your personal page. Keep doing what you're doing if it's working, and then just make sure to tag the other one to direct people to your campaign page.
Thank you.
Emmett, do you have a question?
Yeah, quick. I forgot to put this in my presentation, so I just wanted to jump in. If you email a Facebook political ad representative, you can ask them to bring all of your personal followers over to your campaign page. I've seen it done before. I've also seen it not done, so I'm not promising it, but they do grant that sometimes. If you can show without a doubt, this is the same person, I am this person. So I will, I'll put my info in and we can follow up about that after.
So you're saying that you can email Facebook to bring all those people over to your...
You can ask them, yeah. So yeah, usually the Facebook political ads people are there to tell us what we can't do, but in this case, they are relatively helpful about helping you bolster your Facebook page presence as a candidate.
Do you have the contact of who to email?
Yes, I should have. It slipped my mind to bring this up tonight, but I will try and find a Facebook person.
Yeah, that's always help. Like, that's a huge help, you know? Like,
Thank you, Emmett. Okay, I've never heard of that. That's very cool. So can I ask one more question of you two, and then we will thank you very much and move on? My question is, of the social media platforms that we've discussed, can you rank them in a general sense from most important or impactful for candidates to least?
I'll go first because I'm not good at this, so that Derek can correct anything I say. So I mean, I personally think it's all about, once again, personal preference and where your people are you're trying to connect with. You know, like, I live on Staten Island. Staten Island is like the small town in the big city, you know, like everybody's on Facebook. That's where everybody is. So that's where I made sure to do a lot of engaging. And then Instagram was my second, because Instagram is really, really, it's a great way to engage. It's quick. You get a lot of young people. That's where a lot of young people are. And then Twitter was my like third thing, just because I'm not gonna lie, I don't know Twitter like that. I didn't even have a Twitter account till I ran for office, and I had to open one. But I'm still learning to engage in Twitter. And then TikTok. So this is the thing. TikTok would be my number one, but my campaign wouldn't make me. I wanted to be a TikTok superstar. I'm not going to lie, but my campaign wouldn't let me become a TikTok superstar. So it had to be last on the list because we didn't have enough time to learn all the dances and things like that. But so TikTok is number 4, but the next time I run, it's going to be number 1.
Anyone could TikTok dance not cringy, it would be you.
Huh?
That's true.
If anyone could make TikTok dancing not cringe, it would be you.
Oh, yeah. That'll be me, yes. Thanks.
I would say whichever one you feel most comfortable with, and therefore will take the least amount of time out of your day, because social media is not the most important thing that you're doing when you're running for office. And so how can you do this consistently without sinking all of your time into it? That's the most important thing. That being said, if you already, I will start with a disclaimer, which is how you know it's going to get real. If you already have a great Twitter following, then you can ignore what I say next. I think that Twitter is useless. I do not like it. I think that it's mostly like 80% of tweets are from like 4% of people. And it's mostly people looking to get in a fight. Like, people want to debate things and they're not open to changing their mind about things. So I think that people are using Facebook, Instagram for more personal use, and therefore are more open to the things that they might see there. Maybe too open to some of the things that are going around Facebook, right? But I find that especially the geographic specificity provided by Facebook, as Amoy just mentioned, is super valuable. Being able to tap into those local community groups that are organized around your neighborhood, absolutely unparalleled compared to Instagram, much more national platform. It doesn't matter whether someone's in your state or not when you scroll past the next post. So probably Facebook, then Instagram, then Twitter. If you have long-term political ambitions or national political ambitions or statewide political ambitions, then totally get on TikTok. But the amount of time that it's going to take to put into it to really like do it right is not worth it if you're doing anything below a federal race.
Thank you both so much for joining us today, for being brilliant, for answering all of our questions. I will Avery, can you unpin, please? Maybe do that. Thank you very much. So our next speakers for today, we're going to switch topics slightly, and we're going to talk a bit about PR and earned media and all of that good stuff. And to teach us all about that today, we have Emmett and Jen from Millennial Strategies. And I will tell you that Millennial Strategies is a firm that we work with at Eleanor's Legacy, and we recommend all of our candidates work with because we trust them tremendously. So I will turn it over to them. Jen, you're on mute, just so you know.
There we go. Sorry, couldn't click it. Okay, can everybody see my screen? My earned media start slide here? Yes, okay, good, got thumbs up. Cool. So hi, everybody. I'm Jen. Thanks to Amoy and Brian for those great presentations. Are some hard acts to follow, but I'm gonna do my best. And I'm also gonna talk kind of quickly because I know that we're running out of time and it's getting late and we have one more presenter after me. So with that, I'm just gonna jump right in. Just a little bit of background about me. I work with Millennial Strategies on communications and public relations projects. By way of my background, I started off my career as a staff assistant for Congressman Steve Israel out here on Long Island. I worked for him for 6 years. I was a speechwriter, director of outreach. Eventually, I was his campaign manager during the 2012 cycle. After we won, I went on to work for Rubenstein, which is a big PR shop in the city where I represented clients like the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, Times Square Alliance, and a bunch of others. And then after I had my first daughter in 2015, I moved back out to the burbs and started doing some independent consulting, which is where I met Jeff, and then the great folks at Eleanor's Legacy. And as they say, the rest is history. So that's where I'm coming from. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about earned media and basically why you want it, how to get it, and how to make it work for you. So this is just a quick agenda slide. I already did the intro. We're going to run through these quickly as possible. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and then I can hopefully just address them at the end.
Jen, we see two things on your screen. So, you know, we see the agenda and then we have one that says advice. Is that what you want?
That's my school project. No, sorry. Is it just one now or still both?
Nope, just one. You got it. Thank you.
Sorry. That was a school project. Okay, so moving on from this. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying this is a little bit of a departure from the conversation around social media, but they do go together because they often bleed into each other. So earned media gets shared all the time on social, and these days we know that what starts with social also becomes real mainstream news. So, so even social, everything sort of on social falls into this media spectrum. There's owned media, paid media, and earned media. Owned media are the things that you personally create, produce, and distribute yourself. They're your blogs, your podcasts, your video channels. Paid media is simply advertising and marketing efforts. If you are going to boost your Facebook posts, or you're going to, pay a newspaper to put in an advertorial talking about your platform, those fall within the paid media bracket, and those are messages that you control and place strategically to reach voters. And then finally is earned media. This is the third-party content. It can be your constituent stories, people that you've helped, people, friends and family that you've made an impact on their lives. If you've published opinion pieces in the local newspaper, or got News 12 or the local ABC channel to cover you, those are all earned media. It can also be social media, like I said before. If you have a press conference and someone starts tweeting about it, or runs a Facebook Live video, that counts as earned media. So earned media is media coverage across any platform, print, broadcast, or online, that you do not pay for and you do not own. You can't fully control the outcome of earned media, but you can strategically position yourself to benefit from it. Excuse me. So you might be asking, what does that really mean? So there's some pros and cons to earned media. You have little to no control over the final piece. So you might talk to a reporter, have a great conversation about your platform on, paid childcare. And then they might go talk to your opponent, and they might also have a great conversation. And you have no idea what the end piece is going to look like. You don't know who's going to have more quotes than the other. You don't know if the reporter, maybe doesn't have kids and doesn't really care about childcare and was just assigned this from an editor. So there's, and that can be scary. That can be scary for the most practiced press person. What you can do is you can try to sort of target reporters that lean a certain way. We know that media is supposed to be unbiased, and we also know that it often is not. So trying to do that sort of preparation work if you're looking for a piece on a certain topic. Earned media does not require a budget, simply by virtue of being earned. It builds credibility. It is, of the 3 different categories, it builds the most credibility because people generally know that you're not paying for it. And despite I would say a decreased trust in the media these days, there is still some there, particularly in local news outlets. So if you can get a story from a reporter that people know and trust, or an outlet that people know and trust, that matters. It lives on forever, which you can say for anything on the internet, but earned media in particular, you have no control. You can't even take off the original. So, if you pay for something, you can usually get it removed. If you put something on your own website or in your own, in your own channels, you can get it down. You can't ask the newspaper to just remove a story. It can be hard to quantify impact. In those other categories, usually there are numbers that tell you how many people saw it or impressions or things like that. Earned media, there are those numbers, but they're really less reliable. Newspapers will tell you that they reach 3,000 people a month or whatever the number is. You don't actually know how many people are seeing the story. Not everybody's reading that paper every day. And they're also your best chance to engage targeted audiences. So again, for example, if you have a particular platform that's really important to teachers in your area and you want to reach them, you can talk to the PTA and figure out do they have a publication that they can run something on you about. So it's a good sort of targeted approach to earned media. So how to make the news, how to actually get there. On the left side of the screen, you see a picture of Hillary Clinton. That's one way to be Hillary Clinton. If you're famous, if you are a known person in your community, or that always helps. The news likes to cover people who they know are newsworthy. The second way is in the quote below, which says, "Bad news travels at the speed of light, and good news travels like molasses." This is something that every media professional knows to be true. It can be, again, this is something that scares a lot of people off from media, but it's also part of the gig. And if you win, it will continue being part of the gig. There are sometimes people in the press that are out to get you, that are out to write a bad story. The best thing that you can do in these scenarios is to know who they are, stick to your talking points. And, at some point, Eleanor's Legacy and our team will definitely do some media training, and just make sure sort of you're going into that situation with your eyes open. The second reason I mentioned this is that it's also just important to be aware of, because what's true for you is also true of your opponent. And I'm certainly not suggesting that anyone needs to go negative, but if the press is doing a negative story about your opponent, you want to make sure you're aware of it, because they are likely going to come to you and ask for comment. So just having that sort of basic level of awareness, a prep with your team, making sure if what you want to say on it, even if what you're going to say is, that's not something I'm prepared to comment on, that's fine. But just something to be aware of. Now, on the right side of the screen is a list of harder ways to get press, but more likely ways, since I don't think Hillary Clinton's on this call. The first one is ideas. So there are all kinds of ideas. This could be straight from your platform. Sometimes if they're innovative or different or really challenge the status quo, they can get press. Another example that I love for ideas is news you can use. And in my life, one of the clients I work with is the American Lung Association. And you'll notice that every single year around New Year's, we get press on how to quit smoking tips. Anything that you can do to put your expertise outside of your current campaign to use for your community or your future constituents, that type of stuff is great for press. They love that. So if you are a doctor and want to, come up with some ideas on how people can stay healthy during allergy season, However you can get your name in the press that even is separate from your candidacy is always really good for name recognition. The second thing on here is actions. Anything that you're doing that separates you from the pack. So if you're volunteering at a soup kitchen, if you are the Girl Scout troop leader, things like that, like there's usually a story that you can pull out of those moments. The third one is announcements, personal milestones. Are you getting married? Are you starting a business? Are you committing to run 10 miles a day until SCOTUS gets its act together? Any sort of like big personal announcement or commitment or milestone like that, again, like you can probably pull a story out of that. Appearances, these are a little less likely, but depending on what the context is, you can definitely get press at appearances. For example, if you're going to like a Ukrainian rally, that's something that would probably attract some press attention. And then the last one is funding. It's hard to get fundraising stories usually at the more local levels of government, but if you're outraising an opponent 10 to 1, if you get, you know, Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar both to donate to your campaign, you know, there are exceptions that it's just worth keeping in mind. And basically at the bottom, I just ask you to think like a reporter. If it's a story that you think you would read, then it's worth thinking about how to pitch it. So the next part here is your media toolbox. These are the different ways that you would sort of communicate those different types of news items to people that actually put the news out to the public. The first is a press release. This is usually a longer, you know, anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 pages. 3 pages is terrible. Please don't ever write a 3-page press release. But it's a document that really details the situation. It includes a couple of quotes. A pitch is something a little bit more personalized. You would craft a pitch, for example, you know, a bunch of little stories is not going to move the ball, but you want the Poughkeepsie Journal to really dive into, you know, your platform on affordable housing or whatever it is. Then that's something that you would sort of make sure you have a targeted reporter that you have in mind and reach out to them one-on-one. A press alert is if you're doing a press event and you want to invite press to it. That is a sort of bulleted version of a press release, just with the who, what, where, when, where they can come to see the news. Press conference is what you're inviting them to most of the time. You want to have more than one speaker at those, hopefully other electeds or colleagues in government. You want to have a good visual. So, you know, if the topic is about schools, you want to do it at a school, someplace where they can sort of get the feel of whatever you're talking about. And then the last one is submissions. If you are writing an opinion essay that you want to submit for an op-ed or a letter to the editor, for example, that's what fall into that box. Strategic assets that you should have, that your campaign should have. The first one is press lists. This is really important. And as I know that Amoy was really driving home the idea that you should have a team, and I completely agree. One of the things that they should do, right as you start ramping up, is start pulling together a press list. And this can be as simple as, sort of going through Google and understanding what outlets are covering your district. And then also what specific reporters are covering politics in those outlets. And you can also build up. I mean, there will be some sort of political reporters that are at the state level that are trickling down and looking at interesting candidates or interesting local races. So it's something that will evolve and change and grow, hopefully, throughout your candidacy. And this is should have their name, their outlet, their email, and their phone number, so you can reach out to them when you have this great story. Images, Amoy really covered headshots earlier. Agree that you should have a couple of different ones. Also have a couple of non-headshot pictures. Have a couple of pictures of you with your family or with a crowd or on the campaign trail. Those types of pictures can be really useful for press who don't want the same sort of canned headshot. Relationships, these are things that are going to, again, grow as you go. And I like to say, you don't actually need to know everyone. You don't need to know the editor of the local paper, but I would bet that somebody in your circle of family or friends or donors does know someone there. So just sort of get a feel for like who knows who, and maybe at some point you can figure how to leverage those relationships. And then the fourth one is your website. Again, I think the previous presentations really went over that. I would just say that if a reporter is going to write a story about you, that's the first place they're going to go. So make sure that it's simple, that it's up to date, that it's clear. And then finally, our pro tips. Set a Google alert for your name and your opponent's name. This is really easy. You just literally can Google alert, and you will be able to put in the name, your name, and whatever else you want to be alerted to. And they'll send you an email based on a cadence that you decide on every time that pops up in the news. It's a really good way to sort of just monitor what's being talked about, where your name is being mentioned. The second one is use your social newsletter, your social media and newsletters to distribute the news and make sure that your people see it. In not always, I should probably put a disclaimer on this, but it can be useful to tag the reporter and the outlet. If you get a great story in your local paper and they're telling everyone to vote for you, then yes, you should totally tag the reporter and the outlet and make sure that they know that you're sharing it, that it's going around. And also because it earns that credibility again. Have a comm staffer or someone from your team monitor the news on top of the Google alerts. Also, like, track your top issues. That'll sort of give you a way to expand that press list. If maybe someone's not a political reporter, but they're reporting on business in your area, and you have a proposal that would sort of falls into that topic, that's someone that you can pitch on those ideas. And then finally, maybe most importantly, is be responsive to reporters. If you meet a reporter out, on the trail, or if you pitch one, or one emails you and one has a question, don't leave them hanging for a long time. I would say get back to them within hopefully a couple hours. Most of them are on deadline and want to at least feel like their work is being recognized and that you know who they are. So they can have an ego sometimes. Sometimes it's just a function of deadlines, but I would definitely make sure that you're responsive to them and don't leave them hanging. So I think I talked really fast. I'm sorry if I went too fast for anybody. Sophie, do you want me to just take questions on chat, or I know that we're over time and we have one more, so I'll point it to you.
Do Emmett and then take questions together.
Sure.
Great. All right. I will get right into it. So, hey everyone, I'm Emmett Warbell. I also work at Millennial Strategies based in the city. Millennial has, we have a campaign practice that really focuses on general consulting. So helping our clients build the infrastructure for their campaigns, run it, soup to nuts, and just help stay aligned on all of the trends in campaign technology and everything as well. So it's great to be with you all, and I recognize some of you from the fundraising training a couple months ago. So just checking everybody can see the presentation here. I can't see you all, so if I could get a verbal yes.
Yes.
Great. All right, perfect. So yeah, what I want to talk a little bit about is thinking about digital as a form of direct voter contact, and how we're using our persuasive communication tools in a paid media sense online. So first off, all right, here we go. It's really important to keep in mind that social media, while there are terrific kind of organic, there's terrific things you can do with an organic presence on social media, which Amoy and Brian captured really well. All of these social media platforms, for the most part, excluding Twitter, have paid ads, and it's a great way to do cost-effective paid media. You can run a digital ad with a budget of $5. They're highly targeted, they're customizable, and they're nimble. They're not super simple to run, and you have to kind of choose your battles. And of course, it's always best to have a professional run them. But I'll go through some pro tips here, and happy to talk more offline about digital ads in depth. One big overarching tip about digital ads is that it's incredibly oversaturated at this point. We all see hundreds of digital ads a day. When you scroll through Facebook, you're seeing a couple ads a minute. When you go on a news site, you're seeing a lot of ads, not all political ads. In fact, most of them probably aren't political ads, but you do have to be really engaging to break through. And you also have to serve a lot of impressions. Impression for digital ads is just a term for every time somebody sees an ad on their screen, that's an impression. You have to serve a lot of them to the same voter to see a demonstrable effect. Luckily, an impression is very cheap. So I'll kind of breeze through this part, but digital, as with field, as with mail, you really want to think about who are the most important voters to target and what is the message that I'm targeting them with. And prioritizing, and one way I like to think about things, and I know some of you are run like Amoy, running in a primary context, so this isn't as relevant, but kind of transferable in a primary and general. You want to think about two things when you're targeting: who's most likely to vote and who's most likely to vote for me. And the people who are likely to vote, somewhat likely to vote, and you're not sure if they're going to vote for you, are the people that you're trying to persuade. And so this grid can kind of help you think about it as in terms of prioritization. But on digital, because it's so customizable and nimble, we do really want to focus our spends on the people who are most important to our path to victory. There's also, in terms of messaging, there's also always going to be a built-in option for A/B testing on your digital ad platforms. So that means that you can run one ad campaign to the same audience with two different kinds of creative, two different captions on your Facebook post, or two different graphics, and see what does better. See who's clicking and engaging with it more, and that can help you really refine your targeting for digital, but for everything else as well. So I do really recommend doing that A/B testing. In terms of messaging, early on, I would think about digital ads to boost your name recognition. Simple content that puts your name forward. Bold logo, face, like just getting yourself in front of people's eyeballs. Persuading voters with some of your top messages. As Amoy said, that community content is always really terrific. And you could also try to fundraise on digital. That has mixed success, I would say. Later on, it's all about turnout. Really want to hit people as much as possible with information on how to vote and that kind of thing. Generally speaking, all of the things that Amoy and Brian said about content on social media and what does well, it is the same for ads. And Brian was 100% right. If something's doing really well on your social media, you should think about boosting it. If a post is doing well on Facebook, you should see the button like, do you want to boost this? And sometimes you do, right? So that all of that, all those pro tips on content really still apply here. So just want to go a bit into each of the platforms that we typically advertise on. So Facebook and Instagram, first off, they are a pair. As somebody said earlier, they're the same company now. And in fact, you do everything from one platform, Facebook Business Manager, which is difficult to learn, but once you're on top of it, it actually is really helpful for not just ads, but your unpaid, your organic content too. You can manage your posts, your messages, everything for both your Facebook and your Instagram on one platform. Facebook and Instagram have an insane number of users, really. They have the highest potential reach. Their targeting is really excellent, though they have kind of narrowed what they allow political campaigns to do. So you can't be as kind of micro-targeted, and you know that will probably continue to change over the next couple of years, I'll say. But you can absolutely load your voter file, you know, your list from Van into Facebook and serve ads to that universe, which is pretty terrific. So they have auto optimization on Facebook and Instagram. So, you know, they're going to put the ads, automatically kind of optimize who's getting the ads, and make sure that the people who are seeing them are the people who are most likely to engage in the ways that you want, whether it's donating or anything. Or if you just want the maximum eyeballs, they can do that too, and they make it really easy. And then, as I said, boosted posts are an option as well. So if something's doing well on the organic side, you can just put some money behind it and make sure it goes to your targeted list. So Google search, and by the way, this is an example of a Facebook ad. I think we've probably all seen them. It looks like any other advertisement on Facebook or Instagram. It comes up in your feed. They offer all the different formats that are available on Facebook and Instagram, or most of them. So that includes stories and everything else. And Google search. All right, sorry. I just realized I had to go grab my computer charger. Can we jump to Jen? Any questions for Jen for 2 minutes? I'm gonna go grab my charger. Sorry about that. If Jen is still here.
I am, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I do not know why this isn't plugged in. All right, I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Jen, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If you get wind that there is going to be negative press about you, what can you do about that?
You can prepare. You can sit with your team and go through some talking points. And I think depending on what the story is, there's usually a decision to be made in terms of, you know, how much you want to lean into it versus how much you want to pivot away from it. From a like general sort of point of view in terms of media relations, the best way to deal with these things is to deal with them honestly. That doesn't mean you need to like come forward and just pour everything out on the table, but you know, if you made a mistake, if the story is sort of uncovering something that is factually correct that you don't necessarily want out there, I think, you know, it's a matter of preparing, sticking to talking points, and coming at it from a point of being honest and accountability, and coming up with like what is the corrective action that you're making going forward. So like, how are you making sure that it's whatever it was isn't happening again, or you know, was a one-time mistake. So prepare is the short answer.
There are no other questions. I am back, so sorry about that. Are there any other questions for Jen?
Take it away.
All right, great. So Google search. Highly recommend Google search ads. They're awesome. Google search ads, basically it allows you to bid on search terms on Google. Again, we've probably all seen these. The advertisements will appear at the top of the page when you search something on Google. So what you do is you try and you bid on your name, you bid on other terms that are relevant to your race or your election, and depending on how much you're bidding, what your budget is, you're more likely to appear in people's search terms or search results when they're searching. And again, you can be relatively targeted. Google doesn't let you like load up a customer list, but they do let you target geographically and demographically. So you can pretty much target your district. So yeah, Google is really helpful for driving clicks, getting to your website, or as this example here, fundraising, strengthening your name ID. You know, if you bid on, I always recommend bidding on your opponent's names, bidding on anything related to the election, like how to vote or anything like that. And then even other kind of hot topics that might be big issues in your race or locally big issues that you are running and talking a lot about. You can bid on those. You can make customized ads that point to a page on your website that is relevant to whatever the search term is. And so, the key is it's really allows you to get your website in front of people when they are already interested in topics related to you. So in that sense, I think of the traffic that you're getting from these ads as really high quality because people are affirmatively choosing to be interested in searching for this thing, and then your ad is being shown to them because it's relevant. So really recommend spending the majority of your money on Google search close to election day, bidding really high on things like polling place, how to vote, anything like that, so that people are seeing your name and hopefully clicking on your website. And if you have a voting page on your website with different resources for how to vote, that would work even better for those types of terms. Great. So programmatic ads are another, similar to Facebook and Instagram. You have the ability to run display ads, which are pictures, and then video ads on programmatic platforms. Programmatic is the ads that you see everywhere else on the internet other than social media. So if you're on a kitchen, a cooking website, if you are on the New York Times, sports websites, anywhere people browse the internet, you can kind of follow them around with programmatic advertising. And there are these little ads. So there's a million different sizes that they come in. And it's really important to be able to have a graphic designer or somebody on your team that can actually make these different sizes of ad, because if you only have one size of ad, it's not going to be served that much. But they have a million different sizes and they'll kind of just appear anywhere. It's pretty awesome and very cheap. So strong targeting capabilities. Again, you can match your van list and customize, how the ad campaigns are set up and everything. Especially, in the last few years, as Facebook and Instagram have been cracking down on political ads, this has become a really strong choice. They're not cracking down on political ads, but they're kind of keep bringing new policies in to make it a little bit more restrictive for political advertisers. So some common platforms, Google Display Network. This is great because if you're running YouTube or Google search ads, Google Display Network is a programmatic platform. That's also on the same Google Ads Manager. It's all in one place. And then DS Political is another one I highly recommend. They have a self-service tool called Deploy that lets you do this. But if you're at all doing this yourself, I'd recommend just use Google Ads, do Display Network and search and YouTube all in one place. Speaking of, finally, YouTube, largest video streaming platform on the internet. I think that's still true. I don't know if TikTok has taken over, but It's a great choice for quality. If you do have quality video content, like if you did a launch video or anything, this is a great place to push it out to a targeted list of people. You can pretty much target anybody at any scale. And YouTube ads look great. It's high resolution, quality content. They only allow really kind of quality content on there. And so you can kind of rest assured that the impressions you're getting are really great. And they're, at least the first 5 to 10 seconds is non-skippable. So if you have a really good short video, it's gonna be really effective on YouTube. So final pro tip here, political ad verification. Pretty much all of the platforms I just mentioned require an extensive verification process in order to let you run ads about elections. This process can take a while, and I recommend building that into, if you are running in the June 28 primary and you're thinking, oh, I think I'm going to run ads starting at the beginning of June, you should be starting the ad verification process as soon as possible, because everybody has issues with it. This is an example of the Facebook ad process. So you have to confirm your own identity, which includes a bunch of steps. It includes them having to send a piece of mail to your home that you get a PIN and then type it into the website. You then create a disclaimer, like, paid for by Hochul for governor. And that has to be, you have to use a lot of information from your campaign filing and everything to do that. It's a lot of work. So, and it's often rejected on the first try. So I just recommend you trying to do that as soon as possible. Finally, I'm going to show you guys very quickly another pro tip. The Facebook ads library is awesome. Facebook, one of the Facebook kind of post 2016 reforms was that all political ads will be kept in the Facebook ads library for 7 years by anyone. So that means A, you can search your opponents and see what they're running, and B, you can go on here and just see what, if there's a candidate you admire, you can see what kinds of ads they're doing. You can see all the different types of creative they're using. So just since I pretty much only use Hochul as an example in this presentation, I will do that again. So you can see how much they're spending. And I go here all the time just for inspiration. It's really helpful to see what other people are doing and how they're using digital platforms to advertise. So I highly recommend that, and you can just Google it. I think I'm pressed for time here. So this is an example of a digital plan. I will send these slides after, and some resources. So for all of you to take a look at. So that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Shall we give an opportunity to ask both Emmett and Jen questions? I lost Jen to Pan. There we go. Anyone with questions for Jen and Emmett? I'll ask one. How long do people generally run digital ads for? And do you have to do multiple and switch them out? Or can you kind of have one that you run for a while? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it depends on your budget, right? And kind of saturation. So I don't ever want for you can see on the back end when you're running ads, the frequency, which is, basically the platform will give you a number, an average number of how many times a person has seen this ad. I don't want somebody to see one piece of creative more than 15 times. That's just a rough number, but like really monitor that. If you have a small budget, I really recommend doing a few really great pieces of creative. And if you have a larger budget, then you have more flexibility and more ability to, then I would be putting, more content on there every couple weeks. So yeah, it just totally depends. And if you have a larger budget, also you should target more people. So yeah. I see another question in the chat. So yeah, Patricia, programmatic ads. Well, what are you wondering about specifically? I can say that programmatic ads, I wish I could give you examples. It's kind of hard to like in the wild encounter a political programmatic ad. I was searching around. I was just going on news sites earlier to try to find screenshots. But
is it
so
basically
programmatic ads, to break it down, are they're essentially the ads that you see everywhere on the internet that's not social media. So they're the little display ads that pop up on the sides of your websites, and you might not see them if you have an ad blocker. Actually, that's definitely a possibility for some of you. I often don't see them, but most people do, at least on some websites. And yeah, they're small and they kind of fit in between the content on the website.
So are they, do they always include video? Are they like in your email? Like in my Yahoo, I get a lot of ads on the side. I'm not sure how they're different from other ads, and why you're calling them programmatic. Is it a repetitive message, or what is special about them?
So what's special about them is that you can reach an audience that is either not on social media, or you're reaching an audience outside of social media. People spend a lot of time on social media, but they spend a lot of time on other websites as well. Right. So that's an advantage. Another advantage is that programmatic ads are generally cheaper than social media ads. On the content question, there are both display ads and video ads on programmatic. And the video ads are similar to YouTube in that, like, if somebody is watching video content, let's say on ESPN.com, they could get your ad before their video. So they have to watch it in order to get to their video.
Oh, similar to like YouTube does the ads?
Exactly. So programmatic is kind of another tool in your toolbox.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen and Emmett. I think that we are really out of time. So I'm going to close out, but you all know how to get in touch with me or with any of our speakers who we've heard from today, who are all brilliant. So thank you all so much for joining. I will let you go, but I want to say first that we will be having our next training on June 6th, I believe, a Monday. And the topic for that training will be public speaking and interviews, which is obviously an extremely important facet of running for office, campaigning, and also living your life and excelling in your career. So I hope that we will see you all for that one. Avery is going to drop the link to sign up for that in the chat right now. Thank you, Avery, to sign up for that. And thank you so much. Take care of yourselves, hold space in this difficult time, and thank you for stepping up to run. Bye all.